A spear had struck me, and I am bleeding, but God placed blossoms on the blood and I am bleeding towards life. Now we should be careful with our inner injuries, because our consciousness, even our soul, can imprint into the dimensions, underworlds and so on. I cannot regard this as certain, but I think there are dark beings at the periphery of the worlds, at the border of the injury and pain-form worlds, and these beings look like small serpents around an upward pole, and here we are obliged to quickly glance at this very template in history, in the Bible, in Greek mythology, even the academic symbol for medicine. These serpents are coiled. It is in their nature, they are demon-like. The pole is a verticality of a thing that is. These serpents mean to take from the injury of the soul and wiggle part of the self of the human across the barrier into the darker world where things have access to it, to feed, to draw power from. Now the devil likes barriers, and captures humans with a circle. It is always a circle, and this circle has to do with the mind, with the way we think, the scope of our lucidity, and scope is a reach, and a reach can have an end, a barrier, that is why it is a world and a circle. All minds are inside a circle. Now this circle does not just suggest the end point of awareness, really it represents the wall of assumptions of how we see life, our environments. If we see reality as maxed out in the physical, our career, the house, physical things, natural circumstances, and on top of this, the boundary that each thought presents in our mind to us, then this is a circle. You know the brain stops at each thought, and most humans have a small collection, a handful of thoughts about life and everything that they keep and rehash over and over. The devil captures us by the handful of thoughts we have, and this handful, because it has a limit, becomes a limit. When we break the circle, something like scales fall off the eyes of our mind. Now the concept of something like scales that fell off belongs, of course, to the story of the Apostle Paul, of whose eyes something like scales fell off, and the answer to this strange event has not yet won a convincing interpretation. But I am beginning to think these scales are not directly the serpents around the coils, and the angle towards insight can rather be in the notion of the circles of confinement described above. When the mind expands, something like scales fall off. Now these scales, though not physical in the physical world, are physical in the spiritual worlds, and there is a layer of dimension where our inner thoughts and things become reality. Created things there, in this shadow layer, if you would, are physical, and my assumption here is that these things often appear visceral. Imagine tendons or intestines, they are gray and smooth and slippery, even watery, very fleshy. In this layer or dimension, things appear like this, as if they are entangled, and they have the aspect of fleshy visceralness because they are created by our visceral desires and pain and are obliged to mimic the same.